Why is it so hard? If I had the story right in front of me, I would follow it and do the best options, make sure I do all the best roles, and it wouldn't be this hard. Why is it so hard? I hate that some of them are so boring or so short, and I want to have a better adventure.
So why don't you?
Well, then you do it then.
Maybe I will.
Okay, go ahead.
Night Orchard Keeper presents Alone Against the Tide, a solitary Call of Cthulhu scenario by Nicholas Johnson and friends, with special presentation by Sound Realms. Episode 1, Estate Sale. I'll use the pre-generated character, which is Dr. Ellery Woods, Professor of Arkham University. Now, the pre-generated character has got everything on it except luck, so let's get and roll up some luck. That's 3d6 times 5. For a 10. Wow. Starting luck of 50. Certainly not going to complain about that. Let's make a note of that. Luck of 50. That might come in handy. Okay, well, that's the housekeeping out of the way. Let the adventure begin.
Our story begins sometime in 1924 on the pier opposite the lakeside resort town of Esbury, Massachusetts. The sun sinks low on the horizon as you board the ferry headed across the lake to Esbury. As you set foot on the boat, the ferryman greets you with a wide smile and a cheery wave. He stands by the gangplank as you pass, welcoming the other passengers as he removes his cap to scratch at his balding head. His pudgy figure fills his well-worn suit. He looks a little awkward, but he seems a rather pleasant sort. Leaving the man behind you, you take a seat toward the prow, eyes fixed on your destination. You settle into a seat with your thin briefcase resting on your lap, noticing that the rest of the passengers are likewise getting comfortable for the short trip across the lake. Glancing around, you catch sight of the ferryman entering the cabin. As you sit patiently and wait for the engine to come to life, you listen to the sounds of idle chatter around you. You look out across the water and notice a thin fog beginning to form over the surface of the water as the temperature drops with the approach of night. After a few minutes, you hear the engine sputter into action and feel the ferry lurch forward. The conversations around you continue as the ferryman joins you all on deck. You can't help overhearing most of the talk, though it's surprisingly banal. There are almost a dozen passengers on the ferry. Most of them are simply looking to spend their money during their weekend in Esbury and to enjoy the various shops and leisure activities the lakeside town has to offer. Many of the passengers seem to come from money, as is common in Esbury. You notice a strange look from one of the women in the group. She has a full figure and brown hair and eyes. She seems to be looking you over, admiring your features. The woman clearly sees something in you that she likes. Perhaps it's your looks or a glint of intelligence in your eyes. She gives you a sly wink before turning back to her companions. You likewise turn your attention to the rest of the passengers. Sitting apart from the general crowd are two men in dark, well-tailored suits, whispering quietly to each other. They have unamused expressions on their faces, as if they don't seem pleased to be here. Perhaps they're on business. Noticing that you're sitting alone, the ferryman approaches you and stands over you with his characteristic smile. You notice he's missing a tooth in the upper left corner of his mouth. His eyes are bright as they light upon you.
Good afternoon. You look a bit lonely there, friend. What brings you to Esbury?
You mention the passing of a distant colleague in Esbury and how you've been sent by Mr. Tonic to recover his work and bring it back to the university. The man sighs and nods slowly.
You mean Professor Harris? Real shame what happened to him. Always seemed like such a nice man. Officer Powell says they're still cleaning up the mess at the professor's place. And some of the more valuable bits will probably be at the estate sale tonight, if you really want the attic.
The man looks down at his hands for a moment, and then back at you as he extends one your way.
Anyway, I'm Lance Sanford. Pleased to meet you. But I wish it were under better circumstances, eh?
So what's the deal with Professor Harris?
The ferryman raises a questioning eyebrow to you.
Professor Harris? I can't tell you much, really. I didn't know him all that well, but he seemed like a nice guy. I was sad to hear that he died.
You gently press for more information about his death. Sanford frowns, but answers.
Officer Powell says it's suicide. I'm inclined to believe him, but Professor Harris seemed happy enough to me. More than content to relax in Esbury like anyone else, in between his studies, of course. Ancient Indian history, I think it was. I had a coffee with the professor a few weeks ago, and he took my ear off about it. I couldn't understand half of what he said, but he was quite excited about whatever it was.
You exchange a few more pleasantries with Sanford before he goes off to finish guiding the boat into port. You pass the time in casual conversation with the other passengers and in observing the scenery. You note the tall pines and the sloping hills along the lakeshore around Esbury. These features and the small town beyond are just visible through the growing mist, but squinting helps make them out to your satisfaction. In time, you arrive on the pier at Esbury, grateful to be off the water. You take your first steps onto the pier with the rest of the ferry passengers, trying to get your land legs once again. The passengers still chat casually as they walk off to their destinations. You note one last little flirty wink from the full-figured woman as she struts along confidently behind the women accompanying her. And you feel the two dark-suited men push past you at a brisk pace, nudging you out of their way. Sanford gives you one last wave and a smile as he begins tending to the old rust-stained boat that is his pride and joy. The last light of the sun is fading fast, and the fog is growing thick on the water now. The night is still young, but you would rather not be wandering around in the dark and fog of a town you're unfamiliar with. Taking in your surroundings, you see a sizable crowd jockeying for entrance into a lavish, modern-looking building along the lakeside. A folding sign sits out front, illuminated by a lantern. The words, "Estate Sale Tonight," are written on it in large, bold letters. While this seems to be the main attraction, you could also seek out somewhere to stay for the night and set about your work in the morning.
Right, let's go to the estate sale, seeing as that's happening tonight, and that's exactly what we're here for.
Pushing through the crowd, you make your way toward the estate sale. Judging by the number of people packing into the dance hall, this seems to be quite the event. Most of the people here are well-dressed, with conspicuous amounts of jewelry and designer clothing on display. You see a broad-shouldered man in a policeman's uniform standing by the door. He has a scarred yet clean-shaven face and a baton at his side. His brow is furrowed in a serious expression, and he watches the commotion through narrow eyes. As you mingle with the assorted academics and collectors, you notice a few other faces that stand out in the crowd. Most immediately, you spot a man in flowing orange robes with tawny skin. He seems more than a little out of place and is garnering some odd looks from the other guests. Glancing around further, you happen to notice the two dark-suited gentlemen from earlier, standing in a corner toward the front of the room, talking to a young, dark-haired man in a dated yet elegant long coat. He is of a slight build and has rather sharp features. A thin wisp of a mustache hangs beneath his nose. Most noticeable, though, is the rather attractive young woman standing on stage at the front of the room next to a bespectacled old man. Long black hair cascades down her shoulders, accentuating her pale features and complementing her formal black dress. Occasionally, she and the older gentleman peek at objects hidden beneath white sheets, the sale items waiting to be displayed.
Let's start by getting to know the local police.
You turn around and backtrack toward the entrance to the ballroom. Something about the officer by the door catches your attention and holds it. He gives off a commanding presence, and his eyes bore into you intensely as you make your way over to him. As you move within earshot, he rests his hand on his baton and clears his throat.
I really hope there isn't going to be any sort of problem, citizen. I wouldn't want to see anyone getting hurt tonight.
His hand does not move from his baton.
Okay, our first roll of the game. Psychology. Let's have a look. My psychology is only 50%. But that might be enough. Oh, no. No, that's a fail. And I'm just going to roll with that one.
The officer seems rather alert and vigilant. It would probably be best not to bother him and let him do his job. He clearly does not need or want your help in any way.
Let's go and speak to the woman at the stage.
You make your way to the stage, navigating around the many guests in the dance hall. Your eyes lock firmly on the woman, and hers rise to meet yours as she looks up from peeking at one of the hidden objects. She stops what she's doing as you approach, and a smile appears on her lips as she notices that she's caught your eye. She rests her left hand on her hip as you come to stand at the foot of the stage. The old man behind her continues his inspections, either unaware or uncaring that you've come to distract them. The woman leans toward you over the edge of the stage. You can see her makeup has been painstakingly applied, despite her status as a recent widow. You clear your throat as you meet her gaze and promptly introduce yourself. She extends her hand to you, formally.
Well, aren't you a new face in town?
She teases.
We get those quite a bit here. No doubt you plan to bid on some of my late husband's things? Good for both of us, I say. Just be sure to give a good price for little old me, all right?
She winks slyly at you. You realize now would be a good time to get some more information from this woman who might be the most well-informed regarding your interests. She certainly seems like the flirty sort and would probably respond well to more of the same.
Right, charm roll. Let's see if my charm is any better than my psychology. Not really. I didn't put any points into that. Unfortunately, it's going to be the base of 15. Well, that's a big old fail. That's a 45 on a 15. Damn.
You manage a smile and stumble through a compliment, and the woman laughs.
Oh my. Well, aren't you the nervous sort? Don't know what to say to a pretty woman like me, eh? That's quite all right. I wouldn't have you anyway. You're welcome to stay for the sale, though. I might like you better as a buyer.
She winks and turns around, walking back to her place on the stage.
Let's go talk to the dark-suited men.
You approach the huddled group and introduce yourself to them, stating that you recognize them from the ferry. The two men from earlier appear annoyed at your presence and are visibly irritated.
Scram, man. We don't know you. You got nothing to do with us.
The third man seems likewise bothered and frowns at your intrusion. They certainly make you feel unwelcome. Ignoring you in hopes that you'll leave, the two men in suits turn their backs to you. You see the jacket of each suit shift oddly, as if it's ill-fitting.
Spot hidden. Now, normally that's one of my better skills. Unfortunately, I only put a few points into it this time. Up to 50. Oh well. Here we go. These dice don't like me. That's a 71 on a 50. That is a fail. Okay, that's the interesting people. Let's go talk to the man in orange.
You approach the strange man. He seems well-traveled and weary, and his long orange robes are a stark contrast to the fine suits and dresses of the New England financial elite. He seems decidedly out of place. You open your mouth as if to speak and find him staring intensely at you.
Ooh, here's one I don't often do. Anthropology. Which, fortunately, because I am a professor at the Miskatonic University, I have a decent amount of. Let's give this a go. You have got to be shitting me. That's a 61 on a 60. I am going to burn the point of luck to make that a pass.
You recognize the man's style of dress to be that of a Buddhist monk. You bow a customary greeting, to which the monk smiles and returns the gesture, before speaking in heavily accented but fluent English.
It is good to see one here with such respect for our customs. I am Banu.
His expression turns to a frown as he makes a sweeping gesture to the rest of the room.
The rest here seem only to seek profit from my culture. Selling the items of my ancestors is most shameful.
You respectfully question why he would come such a long way to witness such a thing, and he sighs before turning back to you.
I have come with what money my temple could gather, so that I might save a certain few of the artifacts, ones that your Professor Harris stole from my temple in Sarnath when he came to visit some years ago.
The monk seems troubled and falls silent. He bows a farewell, and you take the cue to leave.
Well, that really only leaves me the chance to mingle with the crowd of guests. So let's go do that.
Rather than single anyone or anything in particular out, you feel it would be best to use your time to get a general impression and speak to multiple people to get their points of view. Hearing the talk around the room, you come to understand that most of the people who've gathered here are merely treating this as a social event. However, there are a fair number of academics and collectors in attendance as well. Judging by the relative wealth of the townsfolk, you imagine that there will be a lot of bids placed on the items. While walking among the guests, you happen to notice a pair of men conversing in hushed tones. They seem to be trying to avoid being overheard, but a keen ear might be able to catch what is being said.
Right. Let's have a listen roll. Again, I only put a few extra points into this, which only gives me 40. I don't like pre-generated characters much. Well, it's not quite a fumble. 93 on a 40. That's a fail.
You strain your ears, trying to overhear the huddled pair's words, but the noise of the other conversations around the room drowns out what is said. The murmuring of the crowd dies down, and people begin to gather around the stage as Amelia and the older gentleman call everyone to attention. The widow strides confidently to the front of the stage where the lights are centered. She flashes a broad smile at the crowd and begins to speak.
Good evening, everyone. I'm so glad you could all make it tonight. As you all know, my husband recently passed, and, well...
At this point, Amelia begins to tear up theatrically, so much so that her makeup begins to smear. She produces a handkerchief to dry her eyes before continuing.
Well, I'm very upset. I miss my poor William very much. don't know what I'll do without him. And that's why I've brought you all here tonight. I hope you can find some use for his collection, and I know that he would be happy to see his things go to those who value them highly. I hope you'll show this poor widow kindness by finding something you like. But now, let's begin. I'll leave the auctioning to Mr. Warren.
With her opening statement complete, Amelia moves to stage left and allows the bespectacled old man, presumably Mr. Warren, to take center stage. He clears his throat before speaking.
Tonight, we have 6 very ancient and very valuable items for sale from the estate of Professor William Harris. Though exceedingly strange, I have deemed these items to be authentic to the best of my ability. I have placed a ballot box, slips of paper, and a pencil on each of the 6 tables, next to the item for sale. If you wish to bid on an item, simply write your name and the amount you are willing to pay for it on a slip, then place it in the box. The item will be sold to the highest bidder. All of the proceeds will go to the wife of the deceased.
With that, Mr. Warren moves to reveal the gathered items. Mr. Warren approaches the first table and removes the cloth covering to reveal an odd pair of clay cylinders covered with strange etchings. They are small and seem quite fragile, with large cracks running down their sides. Mr. Warren proceeds to the next table and likewise uncovers the item in question. This one is significantly larger and more ornate. It appears to be some sort of altar or reliquary, heavily decorated with yellow-green gemstones. However, there is one similarity with the first item, the presence of the same strange written characters, though these ones seem to have been painted on. The old scholar turns to the next item in question and displays it for all to see. A decorated crown of solid bronze, wrought with the image of a Hindu god. The next item is certainly the most mundane, a large, thick, leather-bound journal that appears well worn and beaten, with several loose papers jammed between the pages. Mr. Warren senses the confusion of some members of the crowd and clarifies that the notebook is the assembled personal works and studies of Professor Harris. The item that follows the journal is a well-preserved ceremonial robe of a Brahmin priest. The cloth is pure white. The last item is perhaps the strangest of all. It is a small statue or idol, presumably of one of the many deities of ancient India, made from a blue-green stone in the shape of a rather grotesque, lizard-like creature. The craftsmanship is crude and gaudy, so much so that it appears fake. People begin moving among the items, looking them over and conversing quietly.
Ooh, an appraise or an archaeology? Well, my archaeology is better. No joy.
You glance over the items, but you do not have an eye for antiquities. As near as you can tell, everything is as it appears to be and as Mr. Warren claims. Still, as you look over the notebook, you notice it contains personal accounts, as well as academic findings. It will likely be a good source of information regarding Professor Harris. You notice that you're not the only one looking over the items with such interest. The monk appears to be closely scrutinizing the stranger items as well, and the dark-suited gentleman from earlier seemed to have taken a liking to the curious idol. Apart from this, various other guests wander around the tables, occasionally fixing on one item in particular. There are many guests and a fair number of bids being placed. If you would like to bid on any of the items, now is the time.
I'm going to bid on the strange idol.
Something draws you to the curious idol, and you feel compelled to make a bid. You notice that you're not alone in this, as the monk and one of the dark-suited men both place bids of their own into the box. You hope that yours is high enough.
Right. Credit rating is 60. I've got to make this an extreme. Which I don't. That's a fail.
Though you put a sizable bid in for the idol, a truly outrageous sum is called, easily twice what you offered. Mr. Warren squints hard at the paper before calling out the staggering price and an unfamiliar-sounding name. Banyu. Confused whispers break out as the orange-robed monk collects the statue, with a look of excitement on his face.
Okay, I missed out on that. I'm going to start then, I think, on the journal.
You feel that the information in the journal is essential to your interests, and you cannot help but make a bid. You place your paper with the others and hope that Mr. Warren calls your name when the amounts are compared.
Just needs to be a successful credit rating score. That's more like it.
You feel that the knowledge in these pages could very well prove essential to you, so you offer a price that is more than fair. Sure enough, Mr. Warren calls your name and presses the leather-bound tome into your eager hands.
All right, that's more like it. Okay, let's see if we can keep this going. Let's go for the crown next.
You decide to place a bid on the crown and affix your name and a suitable price to a slip of paper, which finds its way into the box. You wait patiently for Mr. Warren to announce the highest bidder.
And it just has to be a successful credit rating. Please be successful. Yes! Alright, that's a success.
You pay a considerable sum, but the Indian crown is now yours. You smile with satisfaction as you tuck the bronze headpiece into your briefcase.
Let's just go through the other items in order. The altar next.
You decide on a fair bid for the gemstone-studded altar and submit your offer. Not long after, Mr. Warren empties the ballot box and begins sifting through the entries for the highest bid.
This has to be a hard credit rating. Okay. No, that's an 89. That's not going to do it.
Mr. Warren takes his time mulling over the names and figures before calling out the name of a Dexter James. One of the dark-suited men from earlier comes forward to claim the altar.
You know what? I'm just going to get this over with. The ceremonial robe. Let's find out what that's all about.
The ceremonial robe catches your eye, and you settle on placing a bid. You sign your name on a piece of paper with a realistic price and put your submission in with the rest. You wait for Mr. Warren to call out the robe's winner.
That's just a regular credit rating passed. Come on, do me some good. Nope, shit out of luck there. Damn.
It would seem one of the other collectors here wants this particular item more than you. The robe is sold for a higher price than you expected, and to someone other than yourself.
Save the most obvious occult item till last. Let's have a look at the clay cylinders.
You write a reasonable bid for the pair of clay cylinders and place it in the box. Shortly after you do so, Mr. Warren clears the box and begins checking the bids.
All right, last item of the evening. Let's go for this. Okay. Yep. Nope, not happening.
Though you wished to buy the curious clay cylinders, someone else placed a higher bid. You hear Mr. Warren announce the name Arthur Duncan, and see one of the dark-suited pair approach to take the item from him. Your business here is completed. You see the crowd staring covetously at the newly acquired items, and you spot Amelia looking smug and satisfied with a leather bag full of cash. Mr. Warren begins to clear away the tables, while Officer Powell stands by the door and directs people out of the building and into the ever-thickening fog. Though some seem content to stay and socialize, you feel that it would be best to go bed down for the night.
We hope you've enjoyed this little sneaky peek presentation of Sound Realm's special edition of Call of Cthulhu Alone Against the Tide. If you wish to enjoy the rest of the adventure, then why don't you pop on over to our Patreon. You'll find other exclusive games that have never made it into the main feed, access to a members-only Discord, and of course the chance to play in Patreon-only games where you can join us on the adventure, which will appear on the main feed. If that is of interest to you, please go on over to My Daughter's Keeper's Patreon, links in the show notes and description. Until next time, keep those dice warm.